But the truth is that every single being in my world is capable of magic. They're all
Oh, I like
capable
that.
of the same magic. This justifies multi-classing on a
Mm-hmm.
whim. You know, like to me, it justifies all the background stuff of what can happen. Like, same thing with gods. They believe there are gods. There might not be. There might be patrons or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
magical people who seem like gods. I haven't truly decided if the gods are real or not in my world. I say there's an island on my world that the gods live on, but like, I mean, the gods don't ever come off the island. There's supposedly rules in place for why. Like, so the world has created these rules and things to explain these things,
Mm-hmm.
but it's all belief and nothing can be proven per se. Other than like, oh, these people who go to this church and study to be a cleric with enough dedication, they then all of a sudden can cast these spells that they've
Mm-hmm.
learned through or that they've got from their god and they believe. But really it's just coming from within them. They just believe so strongly that it then
Makes sense.
happens. And like it's the same thing with wizards. They think they have to study it out of a book, but it's probably more innate than they believe than they know. Or maybe it actually is helping them unlock that part of themselves
Mm-hmm.
that can do it. Same thing with warlocks, except some of the darker magic stuff or like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, the actual pacts. I'm like, no, that's a very strong magical being that can unlock those things in them, takes credit for it, but really they probably could have done those spells or done those things, but they're being told how to or they're being helped to unlock it within themselves or being aided per se. So that's why like if you break your pact you don't necessarily lose your magic from, you know, warlocks or whatever. And then sorcerers are just already inherent. It is
Yeah.
basically what I'm saying, you know. So, but to me, again, it allows for multi-classing. It allows to take that feat on a whim that now lets you dip into like a class's spells all of a sudden,
Yeah.
you know.
Because I that is one of those I am very good for. I don't do anything to my character unless it makes sense, like
Mm-hmm.
narratively. Like, yeah, sure, mechanically, being able to cast some cure wounds and then also have like dragon wings that can shield me,
Yeah.
probably really good as a paladin. We haven't encountered not near a dragon. We
Mm-hmm.
haven't dealt with anything draconic on any nature. There's no dragons in my backstory.
Yeah.
So I'm either so like I'm the kind of person like I either won't take it or hey DM, like we didn't haven't dealt with dragons, but we have fought some devils. And
Mm-hmm.
the one that nearly killed me was a devil with wings. Could I reflavor this? Oh yeah, sure, go ahead. Cool.
My idea is I do think I want to make gods real in my world, but they're just really powerful beings. Like they're
Mm-hmm.
basically immortals unless they kill each other. And yes, they can do things, but it's a little exaggerated. And you know, so I do think ultimately, yes, there will be an island in my world that you could travel to. Will it ever happen? I don't know if it would ever happen in my game. Maybe if like I have an epic campaign and I want someone to get like a super powerful item in order to fight a
Mm-hmm.
super powerful bad guy. Maybe I would do something like that then. But yeah, I don't know. Like I go back and forth because like every couple of years I'm like, oh, maybe I want to do this because I've been running games in this world for 9 years. I'm not one of
Mm-hmm.
those people who's like, oh, I got a new campaign. I need to create a new world. Like I want to be able to do that because I have ideas for other stuff, but I haven't finished my current world.
Yeah,
And
still working on this one. I can't make a
yeah,
new one,
and
which
like
I
that's
have
part
been
of my
accused of
gaming.
doing.
Yeah, my favorite part of running homebrew games is that it for me is kind of like world building because I take so much stuff from players.
Oh yeah.
Like bloop, yep, that's there, and that's now there.
Yeah,
You
one
know,
of my friends is very good for giving me like just the worst evil organizations, just absolute monsters. And I'm usually as even like, all right, you guys, so I'm sorry that you have to face this now. I didn't make this. that was him.
Yeah, that was his suggestion.
Yeah, so like 14, since my world is 14 years after Magic, one of the things that I talked about this on TikTok, just random idea, because like I do want to work my way up to having guns in my world, but I don't want to just like
Yeah.
there's guns.
Yeah.
Progression. I want to be able to build towards it. So I was like, okay, first step, black powder. But I don't want to call it black powder. So I've always called it dragon powder just because it sounds cool.
No, it makes sense. I actually like that.
Mm.
It might be
And
stolen.
so
I'm just letting you know.
go for it, considering I know what we just fought on Sunday. And like, but like along those lines, like the weapons they had, I like the idea of, okay, there's just dragon powder, but you can infuse it with like the essence of a dragon or find a way to do it alchemically, but you change the black powder. So green dragon powder, yeah, I'm gonna shoot you, but it's also gonna do poison damage.
Right.
Or
acid
dragon,
in my case.
Or acid or ice or what have you.
Yep.
But
well, because that's what I was doing. It was obviously it was a powdered weapon. However, somehow it also did acid damage. How did that happen? Maybe they took the acid from a dragon and then turned it into a powder, mixed it with it, and boom, there you go.
Yeah. So, and like my friend really loves characters with guns. I just call him knockoff Percy because it's funny. But he wants to play a character that is the inventor of like the gun.
Yeah.
And I had told him about like this kind of ideas we know with my homebrew on like that going forward, like when we eventually transition and we do that. It's like, can there be guns? And I was like, we're not there technologically yet. And he had laid out this very convincing argument by writing, like, I think on Discord, it was just a large block of text
about how he studied it.
Of the character that he wants to play, that he's always like he wants to play again. Is the guy who invented the gun in another world, and how it could work out, and he would be it would limit guns because he would be the only person with a gun,
and
but his gun, he knows how to do it. His gun wouldn't be super powerful because it's like it's a musket or like it misfires and it's like a flintlock pistol, all of that, and it wouldn't be super effective for him because he has to make everything himself, so he can't just go buy shot for it and everything. And I was like, okay, I'll let you do it. These are going to be just the character creation options that I have available for players just right out of the gate. If you can figure out how to make it work within these confines, cool. So it's just going to be like a human fighter that is slowly building a gun. And then I was just like, all right, cool. And a thing I'm going to do is I have what I call a backstory events table. You get your standard array. This is your character options. That's how you make a character. However, if you would like a free feat at level 1, you have to make me D100 roll. And then based on the number you get, I will give you something that happened to your character or you have to put it in your backstory. But in exchange, you can get a free feat at level 1.
Yeah.
So he wanted to make the gun thing, and I was just like, okay, cool. I'm not even going to make you roll. Your character is being pursued by like a shadowy organization that wants the gun. I need you to give me that organization. So now there is an organization in my world called the Unseen Tower. And then that kind of prompted my TikTok video of what are some secret organizations in your world? And like,
that's what you're doing on TikTok.
And like I had fleshed out the Unseen Tower. It is he gave me a lot of input, and then I worked it in, and it's literally an organization that they're just like an American company that makes weapons. That's what they
are they lobbyists? Do. Is that what you're telling me?
They're gonna goddamn have lobbyists, absolutely. Like they're all about making weapons, finding ways to make new weapons, and harness the newly restored arcane energies to make better weapons, and then sell those weapons to other people.
Yeah,
they don't care who they sell it to. They just want to sell the weapons. That's how they want to control the continent through the control of armaments.
That's
It was
interesting.
like I was like, "Ooh, this is actually really cool." And then like my friend was just like, "Oh, by the way, just keep in mind, like the high members of the Unseen Tower, they're all named after tarot cards. That's why it's called the Unseen
Oh,
Tower." And I was like, "That's actually really cool. I didn't
that's
think about
interesting.
that." So I was just like, "Okay, cool. Gonna come up with some stuff here." And I believe like the leader of the Unseen Tower is will just be referred to as the magician.
That's a great moment, actually. So I had some tarot cards sent to me recently as a sponsored thing. So
Ooh.
I am going to plug those right now. And they are called the Spheres of Heaven Tarot by Sefirot.
Oh,
So,
those look cool.
dude, they're so I have not opened this yet. I in talking to the people, and it's just been sitting here. I've been meaning to do this, and I was waiting for this episode actually, and I was just gonna like edit it and splice it in, which I will.
Splice it in.
Right now, I will edit this in here. All right, I wanted to quickly look at the Sefirot, the Spears of Heaven Tarot, made by Elliot Baum, George Hobmeyer, and Viv Tanner and James Patton. It's an 80 card deck, comes with a guidebook as well. You can see right here, we got some of the art here. Looks really nice. So we're going to open it, look at it, and let you know what we think. Okay, these are going to be our first impressions. I just took the plastic off. We're going to pop it out. Don't resist the call of the void. That's kind of cool. You got the really thick guidebook here. So I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about tarot. My wife is the tarot person. She's got a few tarot card decks. She really likes them. I've used them for D&D before. But besides that, I other than using them as like an improv tool to, prep and things like that, I haven't used tarot cards. So I don't actually know all the lore behind them. But very nice looking art on these cards. Very nice. Wow. That one's really cool. I like the Empress. The Lovers. That's a nice looking card. More of the Lovers. The Chariot. That's cool. Strength. So yeah, let me know what you think is the nicest ones in here. These are pretty cool. I love the Death card. That's cool. I'm very excited to see what my wife thinks of these as well. But yeah, if you collect tarot cards or if you use tarot cards, let me know what you think of these ones down below. Also, in general, give the Sefirot, the Spheres of Heaven Tarot a look. Go check them out. We will have a link in the description for you to go and purchase these for yourself. Again, the artwork is very nice. It has a nice style to it. It's consistent throughout. These are very high quality cards too. They don't feel like cheap cards. Like, these are printed really well. Again, the art gorgeous. So I can't express that enough. And yeah, I'm really excited to have these. So the Knight, Queen, King. Yeah, these are awesome. So again, let me know what you think in the comments below, and then go check out the description and purchase these for yourself if these look like something you would be interested in. I think these are really nice. Again, the quality, very good quality cards. So I think for anybody who uses tarot cards a lot, you will agree. All right. So yeah, so they're cool. But was talking to the people, like, they're LGBTQ friendly company, it sounds like. Things like that. Just really cool. They're $25 in the US, $34 in Canada, but the artwork on here looks kind of cool too.
Those look dope.
Yeah, so I'm pretty excited to check it out. It's an 80 card deck and guidebook. Now, I don't know how many cards you normally get in a tarot deck.
No idea.
My wife's into that stuff. She's got like 3 tarot decks. She's got like notebooks where she'll sometimes sit there and do stuff with tarot cards. I don't know what she's doing. I don't know what the cards mean, but I'm excited to check these out. And actually, I'll probably end up gifting her these ones, and I guarantee she's going to like them. But yeah, tarot cards are fascinating. And that's a very interesting idea to name all the characters after them.
Yeah, like I honestly wouldn't have thought of that. So it's cool that like he gave it to me, because now I'm like, okay, cool. I will forever Like this will be an organization that I can use forever.
Yeah.
Because like, yeah, congratulations. You stopped the Hanged Man, which I believe is a tarot card.
I'm pretty sure it is.
Yeah. That's just one member of this organization, and you don't know how high ranking they are. You also don't know if someone takes over for them. Is there a new Hanged Man now?
That's interesting.
Also, it just sounds
It's inevitable.
really, yeah, and it just sounds really cool.
Right?
The Unseen Tower is just a really great name for just a villain group.
So you took your friend's idea of what a character was he wanted to play.
Mm-hmm.
It then led to this whole thing around this unseen tower.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Do you normally have a lot of stuff from like character creation that leads to, these organizations and stuff?
It honestly depends on the player.
Like if
Some
they're the
of
type that brings in agency, like you're obviously going to go along with a lot of it.
Oh,
Then?
absolutely. Because the tutorial I'm working on now is like the umpteenth iteration, and it's finally at a point where I want it. But like the version before that, which my friends were like we're playing in now on like my other Sunday game when
Yeah.
I'm not Drigglebot. Um, that version of Torelden, I'm also running like a Wednesday game for my friend group, and my friend who made the Unseen Tower for his character in the Wednesday game, he legitimately wrote me like a 20 to 40 page backstory that was basically just like this short novella.
Did you read the whole thing?
I resisted, and then I woke up one morning before it took me 2 days.
Oh, I bet.
Or a total of 2 hours. Like
Yeah.
I would wake up because I wake up early in the morning before I go to work. So it's just like I'll just read this while I drink my coffee, and I read the whole thing.
Wow. It was,
And
and it was interesting to read.
oh yeah, like
Okay.
it was like, and it was just like a small chunk of this character's life where because in that version of the world there is an isle called the Misty Isles.
Okay.
I described it's surrounded by mist. No one knows what's on the isle, but on the map, where you can see the isle, you can see it's surrounded by mist. There's just peeking over the mist is like this just faintly glowing tree, and you don't know what it is. And so he was just like, I really want to know what's on there. I'm like, sure, whatever. And like I described that the reason why no one knows what's on the isle, when you sail into the mist, you typically get trapped there. Time doesn't move. So I just imagine there are boats and just people and whatnot just stuck out there. And they could have been there for 10 days, could have been there for 10 years. They don't know. And his character was on a ship that was leaving the old lands, coming to this new promised continent, supposed to be promised by the gods. And for whatever reason, the ship they were part of the original settlers.
Okay.
Everyone else made it to Torelden, but his ship for some reason veered off and went that way and got stuck there. So while people he knew and whatnot have made it to this continent, they've lived lives, they've built kingdoms. He's just been trapped in the mist. And then for whatever reason, he got spit out one day.
That reminds me. So there was a game my aunt got me. She's like, "Oh, I heard from the people at the store that it's a lot like Zelda," is what she said. It was not anything like Zelda, but it was called Legend of Legaia, I think. It's like an old PlayStation game. Okay. I think it was the second one I had, where it's like it's got mist, and so like certain parts of the map are blocked off that you can't go into. If I remember correctly, and like you have like these creatures on your arms that are called like Saru and Raw Saru. And I'm probably saying it wrong because it's all like a Japanese adaptation. But I can't remember which one you have. But it's on your arm and it gives you like magical abilities and stuff like that. And the idea is that the mist makes people turn into monsters based on their Saru getting exposed to this mist or something. I don't fully remember. But then when you do certain things in the game, you expose more of the map out of the mist and you can do more things. And I don't know. just when you said this, like misty aisles and like this tree sticking out and you can't go there, it made me think of this. So, yeah.
It's funny enough, there are monsters on the Misty Eye.
maybe
That was
maybe those are the people that got stuck.
because legitimately the tree is the tree of life.
Oh, it's
And
corrupted in the mist, though.
well, I just thought I know the mist is protecting the tree of life from intruders.
Ah, okay.
Only the most worthy and devout of like the goddess of life is allowed to go there. No one else can go. And then she's also she's also got like animal people. So this is where like your tabaxi and
Yeah.
things of that nature would come into play. And like, yeah, they're gonna slowly something's gonna happen, and the mist is gonna disappear, and they're gonna come out. And I was like, yeah, cool. We'll slowly build to these things. And my friend gave me a prophecy.
Okay.
And in the prophecy, it talked about like the black sun shall rise and some other stuff.
Yeah.
And so I was like, okay, so I took that and then I made like a villain group cult thing called the Black Sun. And they're trying to like release a demon, a devil, archdevil or something from the nine hells. And then my friend is playing essentially a paladin who's been locked away for several centuries or whatnot. So the world's different to him. And then I built his antithesis, because he's an Asimar. So I built a tiefling paladin that is essentially his opposite. He's all about the light. This tiefling's all about the dark and has shadow stuff. And the tiefling clearly knows who this character is, and my friend's character is slowly starting to figure out who this tiefling is in relation to him. But my friend, like his character would tell this prophecy like all the time.
Yeah.
And I remember and I don't know why I did it, but I was just like, hey, has Hammond has he ever read the prophecy? Like, has he ever seen it carved into stone, written on parchment, on a scroll? Has he ever read the prophecy? Friend's like, no, I don't think he has. He's only ever heard it. And I was like, cool. You don't always spell the word sun with a U. Sometimes you spell it with an O. So I changed the prophecy.
I love it.
I was like, yeah. And they got to a point where, because around the world are essentially like Stonehenges.
Mm-hmm.
And they learned some lore. There's 5 seals. Each one is a different seal. It takes something different to break it. But they're all written in like the same kind of like ancient script. And they're all linked. If you damage one, all of them get damaged in the exact same way.
Oh, so they're all mirrors of each other.
So they're all mirrors of each other. So like,
or copies or duplicates.
So if like you break the seal of fear, which they did on accident, the seal of fear is broken. If you go to any other one of these seer stones, is what I call them. If you go to any other seer stones, one of them is shattered because the seal of fear is broken. But that prophecy is on there, and the wizard of the group managed to translate the prophecy, and I'm like, cool, okay. Copy what I took the prophecy, I changed that U to an O, copy and pasted it, sent it on Discord to the wizard. I'm like, this is what you see. And there's just a long silence. And just, okay. Hey, Hammond, okay, so you know how you talk about the prophecy? Have you ever read it? No, why? You keep saying black sun, and the symbol that they have is it's a sun that's black.
Yeah.
Or it's like a red circle in the middle is the center is black. I think they also misinterpreted, because the prophecy is SON. We don't know who this sun is. We don't know what this means, but I think it's bad. And I'm just like behind my computers. Yes.
And then you just listen to it and then add if they add anything interesting.
Oh yeah. So yeah. I like my players to have agency, But I like them to also understand I will change things that you give me in a heartbeat if I think it's interesting.
Oh, for sure. No, I think that's awesome. You're like that all sounds really interesting to me. So you're doing TikTok videos about all of this right now, like all the factions and things like that in your world.
Yeah,
Correct?
I'm gonna start doing that hopefully soon
You should.
when I get that energy. I think
You
I think
should also, I don't know, post them on YouTube.
I should probably I keep saying like it would be cool to start a YouTube channel. I should
You
probably do that at some
should.
point
And if you
too.
need help with any graphics or anything, let me know.
Oh, absolutely.
I could slap a banner together for you and use any logos you want or whatever. I would love to help you get that going, but I would love to see this stuff as like playlists, real nice and neat on YouTube. And like, I love watching world building stuff. I have tried doing world building stuff by myself before. I have a hard time. So we were talking earlier about imposter syndrome. I have a very difficult time sometimes with just building stuff and talking about it at times. Like I start to second guess if it's good or is it original or, stupid stuff. Or like, is this name too generic? Like just so many stuff. Because we used to miniature paint and I would do maps. I drew maps of my world. So like one time
Yeah,
while she's doing miniatures,
I've seen a couple of them.
yeah, I'm like sitting there and doing stuff like this. And then she
that was
goes through
really
and
cool.
reads the names and she's like, where'd you get that? I was like, fantasy name generators, of course. And she's like, that's lame. I'm like, screw you.
They have good stuff sometimes.
Right. So like the one she gives me the most crap about, and it might not be a thing out there in California, but I named one of my places Burlington Castle because I came up with a guy named Burlington.
It's Burlington Go Factory.
Yeah, exactly. So she won't let it go. Okay, yeah. Well, she won't let that go. So now I've thought, and I've never had a game or anything end up there. I've never had anyone interact there. So now ever since that's been a thing, right? 3 years ago, I've started to question how am I going to tie that reference into the game somehow? Like, are they known for having some fancy ass coats? Like, I haven't decided. At some point, I'm going to come up with something great, and it's going to be a joke. That's what it's going to be. I don't know. Maybe it's a faction of like merchants or something that sell coats, and it's not. They have nothing to do with it. They're just located out of there.
If I remember reading some of the lore, like, don't they have like a wizard school or something?
Yes, they do.
Like I will
it's
say,
like the big one.
Like I will say, at some point, I'm just going to play like a stuffy wizard in a coat that's from Burlington.
Perfect. See, there you go.
Just because that just sounds fun.
I'm truly thinking of having like a really prominent merchants guild that has like the head of it is a coat dealer. That's all. He just sells coats. And maybe it's because this area for some reason gets a cold breeze off the ocean or something.
I mean, you got a mage college. Mages do some stupid things sometimes.
Maybe there's a magical effect on the city.
There was that good chunk of time where there was just that ever-going ice storm, snowstorm above Burlington.
They wanted to get rid of the bugs that liked the heat. And so they made like this ice storm that got rid of all bugs, but now it's perpetually cold.
That's how my family came into money. We were coat merchants. Now look at us now.
Right. Speaking of which, so this kind of segues really well into this next part I was thinking. So, realism versus fantasy, like how do you feel the need to have it be based in reality for certain things in your world? And I ask this because, spoiler guys, for anyone who has not seen the Ahsoka series, have you seen that yet?
I'm caught up.
Okay, good. Mm-hmm. So in that series, there were some things that Paula was like, what the hell was happening there? That was too much for me. There are creatures that can fly randomly.
Star whales. Yeah.
Yes. Now, I've seen this before. I've heard of it before. I don't remember where I originally did. I feel like there was like something that they were in before where it was talked about. I don't know. Maybe I didn't. Maybe it's some other thing I'm thinking of. But in the show, they can fly all the way off into space and they fly in the sky randomly. There's D&D creatures like that. There's other things in other RPGs like that. But that was too fake for Paula in a world where people can move stuff with their brain.
They're space wizards. What do you mean?
Right. And they can
wizards.
zap electricity out of their fingers. And, but flying whales was too much for her. So in your worlds, how much realism, like would something like that be something you would say, it's too unrealistic, it can't happen in my world? Like, I'm not saying you should have that in your world, but where do you draw the line of what's real, what's not?
This line exists for a lot of things. I draw the line at what detracts from the fun of the game. Just because there's a lot of things that just not realistic at all. And if I were to bring in some realism for it, it just wouldn't be fun for anyone. It's like
it might not fit.
Yeah, it might not fit. It would bog things down. People, like, I think a lot of people forget this. The DM is a player at the table.
100%.
As DM, if I'm not having fun, I'm not gonna want to DM the game.
Yeah,
it's like,
it becomes a chore.
It becomes a chore, and I just don't want to do it. So I add or detract things from a game, as need be, to make sure that, like, we're all having fun. And like, there is a lot of, like, I know for me personally, there's a lot of just like real world physics I don't care about, and I'm never going to put them in my game because it's not fun for me. My friends are the more math minded and can thoroughly enjoy using D&D and abstract ass calculations to figure out how to create a railgun. And they have done that. And they have like, oh, we're going to put this in your game. I'm like, no, you're not, because it's just not fun. Yeah, the physics make sense, but I don't want to deal with all that.
Yeah.
Or if there's something in the world that's fantasy that doesn't make sense physics-wise, magic is real. You literally watched a dude turn into like a bat and then spit a fireball out of his mouth.
Right.
I don't think you can't look at something and go, that's not realistic.
Yeah.
Because it's not supposed to be.
See, like, even as a player, like, I don't want it super realistic. Like, so I had an experience, a couple experiences that really bothered me in a single campaign, but it's happened over multiple campaigns of this DM before. And so in this one campaign, I was a fighter in chainmail. Okay. It wasn't even like I had like super heavy armor. Chainmail's fine. I was on a horse. We're going across snow. I wanted to jump off of the horse and do a two-handed attack just to do something cool. Like,
cool.
I'm envisioning a movie scene where I do something fun and what I view as epic, because it's better than just I hit it with my sword. And the DM penalized me and I had to take fall damage, and this is AD&D. And I was like, that's bullshit. So then later we get to another part, not too long after this, and there's like a slope that goes down to a cave entrance. I have a shield on my back. I want to take the shield off and snowboard down to it. I'm allowed to do it, but I have to make a dex roll. Now, I was not a dex-based fighter, so I failed. I'm snowboarding on snow. I took damage. Bad damage. We weren't high level. I think it left me with like 1 or 2 hit points. Nearly dead. It seemed stupid to me. I don't want hyper-realistic shit in my games as a player. So as a DM, if a player wants something cool, I usually go for it. Now, I've played with the idea of introducing airships to my world. Played with the idea. It's not happened yet. And if it does, I want it to be so rare that, like, maybe it's in Burlington, for example, but not everywhere in my world, not every continent. And it's used so sparingly, maybe because of resources needed for it or something like that, that, to use it would be so expensive or so, difficult to get this resource that it just doesn't happen very often. It happens during maybe cataclysmic events or, to fit a certain theme at some point. So I've thought about like if people go to Burlington, maybe there's a lot of clockwork stuff. Technology is like contained here. Like I've played with that idea. Because I haven't had a lot of stuff happen in Burlington yet, I haven't been forced to make the decision yet. And so I don't know where the line is with my own world at this time. I kind of like the idea of not bringing too much of that. More like playing with, hey, we're in the 13 or 1400s kind of thing, but with magic. But at the same time, there's some things that I think would be cool. And I could justify it for a very short amount of time, I think. But I worry that it would throw everything else off,
No, yeah, I think because I have the exact same reservations. It's one of the reasons I'm like, I don't want to throw guns into my world. Because I just want like a nice, simple, classic fantasy world, Dungeons and Dragons, sword, board, throw a fireball. Yep. But I do recognize I have players that are like, I want to do guns and have all these other things. And I
it's
think
like Critical Role all over again. I want guns. Well, we don't have it, but let's make it work.
So like one of the ways like I've made the concession is like, okay, dragon powder, it's just being introduced. It's a brand new thing.
Yep.
That will lead to the invention of the gun. Also, because airships sound fun. One of the things that I did was in like the ancient history of Aldaria, back when magic was just unchecked. You had your Nethril type empire. Yeah. Just this is where all the good mages go learn. This is where they're all from. So this is where you have like your floating islands and stuff like that.
Yeah, I do want that in my world too.
Yep. So I'm like, they're the ones that because I'm using the A5e Advanced 5e system.
Yep.
So they've changed some things. So it's not Warforged, it's constructed. So like, I want to introduce the constructed as a heritage.
Yeah.
These will be, now that Magic's return, at some point players will go into a dungeon or a tomb or something, and what you thought was a statue was actually just a very ancient automaton that is slowly waking up because his arcane battery is recharging. You will find, it's very possible to find an ancient airship at some point. And then I know, because I have a problem and I really like world building and just doing a bunch of stuff, I've just decided instead of making a new world, I'm just going to like make a setting. So when I'm in like, I want to do a sword and sorcery type mood, there's going to be a continent for that. And I've decided that continent is the continent of Eldrathia, which was initially the Nethril type place that has just become this barren wasteland with messed up magical stuff. And that's where I'm going to throw in, in Torelden, you got your basic fantasy races, humans, dwarves, elves, halflings, orcs, dragonborn, and whatnot. Eldrathia, you got lizard folk, kobolds. There's a heritage called Rockborn, which are just humanoid rock people.
Yep.
Constructed and just gonna go crazy left that way.
Yeah.
I'm like, cool. Also, if ever anyone decides to go there and I do a campaign in on that continent, that's when I can throw out like all this ancient technology at you. Maybe guns existed at some point. There were magic guns, but maybe there were guns.
Yep.
And then you can find them, and then everyone will be happy. And it won't interfere or throw off the fantasy vibe I'm getting. Yeah, it's still fantasy, but we found some stuff from a very long time ago.
So that's originally where I was trying to go with my world. Was like, so I took a ton of inspiration from a variety of things. But back when I started my world, like I said, it started with Pathfinder, first edition. And then I had started looking into this book, the Inner Sea world, which is the Pathfinder world. And this is basically a kitchen sink of fantasy. You have technology in a certain area. You have all sorts of different things, like the inspired Egyptian type culture and tomb, robbing and stuff. And, you have like Pirates of the Caribbean area. You've got everything. And so when I first started my world, it started with a map of the Orcs Arrow Peninsula. And that was originally going to be just your generic fantasy, good versus evil. Orcs are bad, dragons are bad, humans, elves, dwarves are good. However, there's a group of dwarves that are also bad. Oh, and then we're going to have pirates in case I want to do some seafaring stuff. All in this one little area. Cool. That's what we were going to do. Then we started coming up with our campaign, and there was like, well, we want a campaign kind of like this. So I was like, oh, okay, so we're going to do a little bit more shades of gray morality. So we played with the idea that there was a drow named Hunter, or there was a ranger named Hunter Dark, and then there was a drow from a city around the mountains, and that drow was helping people, like, think the Underground Railroad, helping outcast races escape from a city called Sandstrom to a settlement that was created by heroes and outcasts that's off the map, off the grid kind of thing. But it's a whole establishment of like a tavern and all this stuff. And it's where like goblins and half-orcs and drow, all these people live harmoniously. And that justified if people wanted to be a monster race, in quotes. So that was how we kind of came up with that. And so then I was like, well, I got to craft campaigns around this. And then like we had like vampires that were bad. Like it got, kind of interesting. But then it started to sort of go more generic. And then I was like, oh, but then at the same time I was running a different campaign. I was like, I want lots of undead. And so where can I do that? Let's start a new continent. And then I was like, we're going to have an open area of like, where like demons and devils and all this other stuff. And then I was like, I'm just going to make this the area where these 8 evil factions are trying to join up and take over the world. And eventually, if they do, they're going to then spread out and give each other each a continent, which we never got that far. So that hasn't happened in my world yet. It was called the 8 Pillars of Death. And I don't even know what the 8 pillars fully were. I had a necromancer for the undead portion. I had mind flayers. I had the Cult of the Dragon, because I took inspiration from Horde of the Dragon Queen and was kind of implementing it, but it was my homebrew stuff. I had, I don't even remember. I had a few more. It's on an outline, and I have a blue binder over here with all sorts of stuff from past campaigns. And a ton of one-shots that I've used to help flesh out different areas. But it was like, all right, this area is going to be really, really bad, epic, end-of-the-world type of shit. Is what I was trying to get to. And then I decided I was going to have another area that was low on resources, poor, so you can't get a lot of magic items. You can't buy magic items. Its resources are scarce, and this is more of a survival area. And so I like ran a campaign there, and like there was time travel there as well because of certain, like a massive stone, but it wasn't like anyone could just do it. You had no control over it. And whoever you were with, you would time jump with. And then I would just decide what would happen. And that was a cool way for me to just be like, all right, let's wipe the slate clean. Boom. That was a good way for me to explain why the area fell into such disrepair. And like that area is heavily associated with Burlington and some of the other places. So like I had that. Then I had an area where I was like, I want dragons to be the political force here. Or dragonborn. So, I have like what's called my Valkar Kingdom area, which was a gold dragon who ruled the city. And the nobles of the city are dragonborn or advisors to the dragon. And so this dragon then had a son. He died, but to save his son, he got sick and died. So to save his son, though, because my dragon's polymorph in my world, his son polymorphed, and his best advisor or spiritual advisor or whoever got his son out of the city. Well, there's no king now in this kingdom. Nobody knows where the son is, and that hasn't been resolved. I was running a campaign where that was going to get resolved. It never was. So now that's just where it is in my world. It's in limbo. But this part of my world has like mushroom people, and like it's very what's the word? Whimsy. Like there's a lot of like whimsical kind of things in this part. Yeah, like, but it's not like overdone. It's like over here there's like a town. Over here there's another town where like these halflings and other stuff are really big into baking. Like baking is a huge deal in this one town. Like just little stuff here and there. But then there's like an evil necromancer, or not necromancer, like a druid lich, as I called it. And he was the head of the druid circle. So all of his druid circle that like worked with him, they're all undead also. And so they're corrupting the forest and killing it. And there's like these creatures like stick bugs, which are like parasitic bugs that go up your nose and like take over you. Oh yeah, dude. In fact, I didn't realize I had a player that quit that game because it was a little much. I didn't realize until after the fact, and I felt really bad.
My god.
Yeah. But so I have that, but then there's a shadow dragon that's trying to come back to this land because the only reason they left was because of the gold dragon. But now that he's dead, and he was working with those druid liches who got the gold dragon sick, he's now coming back. And there's famine and like all sorts of stuff that's only in one portion, but it's spreading. And like the half orcs, for example, are like great warrior culture and like all sorts of stuff in this one city. It's fully fleshed out. There's monk monasteries throughout this part. Like it's a little crazy, all the stuff in the Valkar Kingdom area. But I love it. And then like you guys played through the Swamplands area. The Swamplands at Thakos is just an area where I'm like, I'm going to have wolves. I'm going to have this. And I stole a lot of the idea for that city called, what the hell was it called? Oh shoot. I can't remember what I had called it. What was that wolf city?
Don't ask me. That was back before I was taking notes.
It was like, yeah. Oh shoot. What was it called? Man, I got it somewhere. I don't remember. I can't remember. It was in the gut of Morris or something, or the bowels of Morris was the swamp around it. What the hell was that city? Anyways, whatever that city was, I stole the whole concept of that based on a game I started playing with someone. Not word for word, but the exact thing, like the magical lamps, the walled city, the fact that the town's guard was werewolves, like all of it 100% stolen from somebody who ran that for me. But because I never saw the end of it, never saw what happened with any of it, I just was like, that is the basis for what I'm doing with this. Like just stolen, boom, done. But now in my world, you guys have ended that. So now that whole like idea of werewolves doesn't pertain to that city. So like I'm now beyond what I stole.
I'm probably going to steal it now.
It's rewritten. But like his name for it was like Bog Sylvania or something. Like, I don't know. It was a funny name. And I had originally told people that's what it was. But yeah, so there was like, and that city is that was the premise of that area. But I knew I wanted an area with werewolves and witches and, more like Halloween theme type stuff is kind of what I was thinking. And I added like giants to the southern coast and like a lot of shipwrecks in that area. And, I've added a lot of stuff to it that I just love. I'm like, oh, I love this. This is cool. Because I go through these like spurts where I'm like, I want to play a game like this. That needs a place. That's going to happen here. So like my world is kind of becoming that like kitchen sink, everything and the kitchen sink. But then again, I don't know where I draw the line with like certain realism and stuff, but it's all good. So speaking of influences, like stealing from people and stuff like that, which I think is the great sign of a D&D campaign and things like that. Anyway, where do you pull your inspiration for world building from?
It depends on like what kind of setting I want to build. Like I know Tar Elden is kind of like classic fantasy, but I also want to put touches of like dark fantasy in there and like sword and sorcery and just bits and pieces of other stuff.
Yeah.
So I typically take inspiration from like just consuming different forms of media, cartoons, TV shows, movies, various books that I read. Also, like watching YouTube videos, other people's D&D playthroughs, playing in other people's games.
Yes.
Which I think is a great inspiration. And not just that, but playing different systems of games just to see how different systems handle certain things.
Yeah.
Like I know if I'm in like a dark fantasy mood, we're gonna rewatch Castlevania on Netflix. Uh Probably gonna watch Season of the Witch, the Nicolas Cage movie,
Okay.
which it's not a good
Never
movie,
seen it or heard of it.
but it scratches a dark fantasy itch. Uh or I might watch like Midnight Mass on Netflix, which is that vampire show with the church. It's a modern show, but it's got a lot of like it's got vampires. And it's got
Yeah.
like a lot of psychological aspects to go into. I'm like, okay, cool. I can kind of use this for like a fantasy. If I'm in like a classic fantasy mood, we're binge watching all of Lord of the Rings.
Yes. Thank you. I have watched Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit more than probably any other movies in the world.
Yep.
Like, it's right up there with Rocky. I've watched
Because yeah, I
that a lot,
know.
too.
Oh yeah, because like I know the original Tor Eldon. I wanted it to be more like a Middle Earth type setting.
Yeah.
So like even the map itself, I used Incarnate, and it's like it's the sepia tone map.
Do you use Incarnate for all your maps?
Only like world maps.
Okay. I
And
love
I'm
Incarnate. I do.
like I pay for it, so I'm
Me
like I
too.
kind of have to use it.
Yeah.
And like I know the recent world map that I will show you at some point just so you can see it.
I want to
But
see.
like the recent world map that I'm working on, I had to get my friend to help me because I don't do physical maps well
Okay.
in the sense
So it's
of
hand drawn.
I I did hand draw. I did hand draw one and then use that as like the basis to do for the incarnate. So I know where things
Gotcha.
are. But then I also had my friend help me because he understands like world building from like a
A realistic
geographical
standpoint.
realistic standpoint. Because like my previous version of Tor Eldon, one corner of the map was a region called the Shadow Marsh. There was a mountain between that, and then the other side was like hills and snow and tundra, and then at the bottom of the continent. See, I actually need to get that book. It looks like a good book. I think I have a version of that somewhere around here.
Nate
But
from WSD20 recommended it to me. When he started doing maps, he eventually was like paid to do it, like hundreds of dollars to do people's maps and stuff. He said this was what really helped him get going.
I don't know, like I watched to make the current map. I was watching a lot of his videos
There you
just
go.
to figure it out because I'm
Yep.
like I can figure out placement of cities, towns, things like that, but I don't know where to put mountains.
Oh, okay.
And like mountains will.
Well, then you have to
like,
make up tectonic plate movement.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
But that's
and like,
not hard.
not my brain. See, my
Are
brain.
you worried you're going to mess it up?
See, here's the thing. The other maps I've made before, that's one of the reasons why I'm revamping the world.
Sure.
And I told my friends this. It's because they're like, yeah, it's a great world. Your map, the setting, it doesn't make sense geologically because this is not how things
told
work.
you
I'm
that?
like, yep. And I'm like, there's magic. Shut up. I don't
Yeah,
care.
no. I've never heard that.
It's like, I don't care that there's a desert on one side of the mountains and the other side of the mountains is a frozen tundra. I'm aware geologically that's not how the real world works.
That's not how Earth works. Do we know all worlds in the universe?
It's like that's not how Earth works. I was like, I'll be honest, there are just various types of environments that I want to run something in, and now I have all of them. So when I was remaking the map, I actually like had pulled my friend on Discord and then like shared my screen, and I was like, all right, walk me through. I know like where should I put mountains? Putting mountains, that's step one. That'll inform everything else. So he helped me set up like a couple mountain chains, and then between those mountain chains is a desert. And I'm like, okay, cool. And I was like, all right, cool. I got it now. This is beautiful, and it's just where I want it to be.
That's awesome. Yeah, so I never even worry about it. I'm just like, so, okay, there are certain things I do. Like rivers mostly flow down from the mountains and find the ocean. And, you know, usually it's multiple rivers flow out of the mountains becoming one until they hit the ocean. Like, so I play with stuff like that that's moderately realistic, but there are even cases in the real world where it doesn't always do that.
Yeah.
You know, like, so there are exceptions in our real world, like, all the time. So yeah, it's just kind of interesting. So I'm always, if I ever heard someone tell me like that's not realistic, I'd be like, just like you said, screw you. There's magic.
Like there's magic. Anything.
We just talked about a city in the middle of my continent, close to like an equator, if there is one, that possibly has ice around it a lot, or at least conditions for it. So yeah, that doesn't fit, geologic or
Like
geographically or whatever.
Your character's a literal wizard. You don't get to tell me that something doesn't make sense.
Right.
That's not real.
Right. Skip that. No, I mean, I get it. I do think, I try to think about that, but I've never gotten to the point where I'm like, what do the tectonic plates in my world do? Nice. Like, I don't do that. Same thing with like volcanoes. I only have a few known volcanoes in my world.
Like, I only did the whole tectonic plate things once, and that was for like. Granted, I did it.
Do you think it makes your world better? Like, can you tell? You think?
Personally, no, it doesn't. It doesn't make it better. It's just one of those things where.
But that the effort.
I know.
There. Yeah.
And it was also, I did it on accident because that's how I do a lot of things. It's pure dumb luck. And it was that high school science knowledge coming out.
Yep.
I was making the map and I was like, okay, cool. I know I want a subcontinent called Ethiopia, kind of like Africa, Egypt, vast desert, but like the center of the continent is like this spiraling oasis. This is where like all of like cities, most of the cities and towns in like this kingdom will be based. It's going to be based on the oasis. It's all going to be.
Was this once Atlantis?
No, it was actually supposed to, in that particular form of Tor Eldon, it was actually going to be, this is like Nethril. This is where like the ancient empires were. And then it turned to a giant desert when everything went pear-shaped. And like now it's controlled by a ancient blue dragon that's like the god king, because in like, I don't know if anyone has ever looked at the A5e stuff. It's a small tangent, but for their monster stat blocks and whatnot, they give you description of like, they give you combat maneuver stuff. This is how you should play this character in combat. It's very helpful. They give you a description of things. I think more so than just 5e. And like in the lore information for like the blue dragon, one of the things it says is because of the magic that they emanate, where they make their lair, it naturally becomes an oasis.
Okay.
So I like the idea that in the middle of this desert, there's just this beautiful oasis and it doesn't make sense. There's an ancient blue dragon that lives there. So surrounding it, it's just naturally beautiful. But when I was making the shapes of like the continent and whatnot, it's like, okay, cool. Yeah. If I look at a Earth map, you can fit the continents together kind of like a puzzle, because tectonic plates, continental drift, they shift apart, but they used to be part of a supercontinent. So it makes sense why they look like they fit together. So I just thought it looked cool, and I made pieces that look like they fit together.
Yeah.
And then I was just like, oh, hey, look, tectonic plates. I kind of did a thing. It's not gonna add anything to this game at all. But I know I did it. That's what counts.
Right. Yeah, no, that makes sense. So again, I haven't put that much thought into it. I don't know. Maybe I will one day. Maybe I will. And then I'll just be like, my world just had a great disaster and changed. And then, but I think it's going to take a lot to motivate me to do it. It's like, I like how my world's set up right now. To me, looking at it, like if I have a big overview of it, it makes sense kind of. And I am still adding things, so my world, in the grand scheme, I've got technically the equator is south of most of my known continents and everything. It's like it's pretty much at the bottom of Orcs Peninsula, maybe a little bit
Okay.
further south. Okay. Southeast of that is where like volcanoes and like across the ocean is a
Mm.
huge area with like volcanoes and like just barren lands where technically is where my orcs in my world came from for the most part. Like that's where they're from. I don't know why. I haven't decided why. I haven't filled out any lore about it, but I know they come
I
from
mean,
there originally for some
yeah,
reason.
those are questions you don't have to ask until they're asked.
Yeah,
I'm not going to answer it now. Or one of my
exactly.
players is like, "Where do they come from?" And even then, you could be like, "I don't know. You're going to have to quest and figure it out." I
Right.
don't have an answer yet. Like,
Right.
it just gives me time.
So that's kind of what my original thought was. Now, south of like Orcs Peninsula and all that, much further south, that's where those islands are with the harpies.
Mm.
Now that's south of the equator. So like I'm thinking in my world that's like maybe where Brazil would be. That's where that is. And then like most of my stuff then goes up north and like I have an area at the top that's like the sea of broken glass
Mm.
because of ice that looks like broken glass
Makes sense.
when it washes up on the shore. Yeah, so it's dangerous. And like, you know, I've got an area that's heavily influenced by Skyrim and those in the cold area with those like pincher like
Mm-hmm.
earwig creature things. I have those types of things up on this like floating island of ice, you know, far north. But and so far that's as far north as my world goes. You know, I'm sure I have more above it, like at the crown of the world or whatever I'm going to call it. Crown of the world's Pathfinder's world, as they call it, the crown of the world.
Like that's a really good name.
I love that name. I won't steal that name just because it's so known, you know. But I'll come up with something cool, I'm sure. Um, but yeah, like love that stuff. So that's where I'm at with my world. Now, east of all this, I have a massive whirlpool that's bigger than pretty much all the continents I've currently mapped out combined.
Ooh.
And this whirlpool, if you get too close, it sucks you in and you get sucked down in. I don't know why. I don't remember what my reasoning was or anything. I think it was just a way to make it so people don't try to go and discover large continents elsewhere because there's like a hazard of trying to. But then it's like, oh, but out that direction is where like dragon turtles might be or kraken or, you know, some of these great mythical beasts that nobody's seen or whatever yet. You know, it's kind of how I was justifying it. So this kind of covers that up. And then near that area as well, but still out of that range is where like the island of the gods is. You know, and so that's where like all the gods live on this massive island and do their thing and they stay on their island, but they can go out as avatars, but they can't go out as themselves because they're magically bound to the island due to a contractual agreement between all of them was originally the idea. And you know,
Okay.
obviously I said earlier though, I don't really know if the gods are going to be real in my world. I think they are, rather than just being powerful beasts or creatures. I don't fully know yet. I haven't had to discover it yet because nobody's went to the island. But at
Because
some point, I'm sure it'll come up.
like I like the idea of maybe the gods aren't real. Maybe they're just not super omnipotent beings. They're just powerful beings and they can die.
Right.
Because I think that's actually the route. That's the route I'm going. Because like one of the things that I learned is what works best for me for world building is actually building from like the lore up. So I started with like a creation myth
Mm-hmm.
and how like the cosmos came into being and how the gods came into being. And I let my friend read it and it's like, yeah, that straight up just reads like the creation myth from like many cultures. Like perfect.
Yeah.
That's where I wanted it to sound like. And I think like the ending of the creation myth, because the like prime deity, she doesn't have a name.
Mm-hmm.
She's just ever referred to as the first goddess. She's just the first goddess. Uh when her and her children that are all birthed are created, how gods are created from thoughts or whatnot. They are in a war with, I think I called them like the outer ones,
Okay.
Cthulhu, that kind of thing. And the gods triumph, but the first goddess dies at the end of the story.
Yeah.
Like, cool. I like the idea that yeah, gods can just die. It takes a lot to do it, but gods can die.
I
Which
like
then
that idea too, no matter what. Like, I just love the idea that gods
yeah,
can die and change things drastically.
because like that also then lends into why the gods got so upset
Mm-hmm.
when mortals and their magics started becoming on par with them.
Right.
You can't. That's terrifying for a god when you start to realize, oh, these people that we kind of made, they can kill us now.
Mm-hmm.
We have to stop this. We need to put them in their place.
So it's interesting. So I have different eras, right, of my world. Like I have what's considered before the gods and birth
Mm-hmm.
of the gods, the technology age, or like rise and fall of technology, rise of magic, and then darkness ascending. Like all these different eras. And like darkness ascending is supposedly the current era. Um, but I also have that's technically before the gods, but like old gods.
Mm-hmm.
And so like I do take inspiration from uh, one of the first fantasy RPGs I ever read, and that's Palladium's Fantasy Age, or not Fantasy Age, but Palladium Fantasy RPG. And in this, they have old gods. They're called the Great Old Ones. It's
Love them.
heavily inspired by like aliens that kind of maybe
Mm-hmm.
landed on this planet.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe there's like Cthulhu-esque gods kind of thing. Maybe that's what it is. They're not really gods. Maybe they just were controlling like slave master. Like, but they're evil as hell. There's nothing good about any of them, and they're slumbering in that setting. So like,
Yeah.
I sort of like some of that idea, and so like I have like old gods that are evil and kind of like that
Mm-hmm.
that have been it came up once in my campaign, but it wasn't that they were these creatures like that. So I had an old god that was literally a mix of a cleric and something else, and we had in part of the campaign there was a cult who was looking for the body parts of this old god that basically were petrified body parts.
Ew.
And the ritual to bring it back was all these cultists had to cut themselves, and it would take it like on this altar, and it would soak up their blood, and they would die. Most of them would. Some might live, but most of them would die. And it would take like as it was sucking up their blood, all of a sudden their skin might go or whatever, and
Mm-hmm.
then all of a sudden you see this creature. It's kind of like and I did not take inspiration from this, but it's sort of like in the Mummy Lord or Mummy, what is it? Scorpion King or whatever,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
where the guy's like getting his body back. It's kind of like that, but I did
yeah,
not take inspiration from
that
that.
was the Mummy and the Mummy too.
Yes. So it's kind of like that, but I did not take inspiration from that. In fact, I had a player who was an old school player in this campaign, and because I didn't want them to meet this guy yet, I started a session with a thinking of like a movie, like, oh, this is like a cutscene. And I started the session reading to them what I had wrote, like a little blurb about this ritual. Like, and I explained like how the door shuts to this temple and it's cold stone and these people walking across it and all you can hear is the footprints. And then all of a sudden you see multiple robed figures standing around this circular stone altar with these petrified body parts, which the players were originally trying to get. And I think they got most of it. I don't remember or I think they didn't get any of it, or they had one piece that somehow got away. Something, I don't remember. But either way, they did the ritual, the god came back, and boom. Now, that one player told me, he's like, so does my character know this? I said, no, I'm just trying to give you as players an introduction to the bad guy. Because, and I was like, I was real honest. I was like, because I don't want you to meet him, and first time you meet him, you kill him. Like, I wanted, or vice versa. I didn't want to TPK you guys, because I don't want to lose everything that we've done that I thought was fun up to this point. So this was my way to give you a narrative way to know who the bad guy was. And that they made their progress for fun as players. Like, that's all. He didn't like that. But everyone else loved it. So, And I personally like stuff like that. I think it's a fun little narrative tool to play with. Like, take inspiration from movies or video games and then do that fun little, hey, here's the cutscene that your character might not know, but as a player, shit's getting bad.
Mm-hmm.
You know? And that was fun. But yeah. I don't remember where I was going with. Oh, I was talking about the old gods and stuff. But but he was one of my old gods. And so like I had made him, I had done 15 levels. I made him with the player's handbook, D&D 5e. He was like 15 levels of like one of the clerics. I can't remember which one. And then he was like 15 levels of like sorcerer or something like that.
Tasty.
Yeah. And so like, yes, he had like certain items that he used and stuff like that. But he was like a 50-50 type of character. And it was like, I think sorcerer and cleric. I can't remember. I'd have to go and find my notes. But I have not talked about that in so long. And that feels good to talk about.
I mean, I'm enjoying. I will always love hearing about old gods.
It's awesome.
I'm very partial to old gods and elder ones, elder gods. I just love Lovecraftian stuff. Shit's wild.
So all of like that campaign started before I wrote anything really about gods or the timeline in my world. I knew at that point I just wanted a lot of history to my world. And that was the first campaign I ran in this world. I was like, I'm going to do something. I want a lot of history. I want like old powerful artifacts and I want all this crazy stuff, but I don't want it to just be there. I want it to be like, you have to discover it and it's really deep and it's hidden and like all this crazy stuff. And that was like why I was like, well, all right, there's that time, like the old times. And then there's the rise and fall of technology. So at some point there was a ton of even maybe technological stuff like cool guns or like, I don't know, locomotives or something, but it was all lost at some point, you know, like I wanted a way to be able to justify anything in my setting that I decided I wanted to do at some point.
Yeah.
And so that was kind of where I came up with like things as I went on. And yeah, before I really started writing anything. So, because that was 2014. I didn't start writing anything about my world really till maybe 2018.
Okay.
I had wanted to, and obviously I have all the notes from previous campaigns that I've started pulling into stuff, and I've changed some things since those campaigns, and I still might do it again in the future, but ultimately that's where I'm at with that. So.
Oh yeah, I'm in the middle of I had seen this on, I don't remember which YouTube video, but it was essentially like writing a player primer for your players, just like what they need to know how to build a character. And so like I did it for the last game that I ran. I felt like it was very helpful just to have just all that information in just one spot, so someone doesn't have to keep asking me, hey, by the way, who's the king of this kingdom?
Yes,
you can look in the player primer. That's why I wrote it. So I'm in the process of like writing a brand new one, but like consolidating like all of the lore. I think I'm currently at 30 something pages in a Google Docs.
Wow.
It was like I got just a little bit about Tor Eldon, the races that are available, how to build a character, classes, subclasses, all of that. But then I also threw in all of the gods, both good and bad. And then I threw in archdevils and archdemons. And now I'm currently working on like just putting in just notable locations, a couple kingdoms, some of the outlying villages and whatnot, city-states. And then I think maybe no, I'm not even done after that, because then after I do that, I'm going to do notable NPCs.
Yep.
And then notable organizations.
You've seen the document I created, right? Where it's like very empty, but like I got the baseline of what I want in there, and like I've started putting stuff.
There's spots for people to fill in things, Mikey.
Yes. Oh, there's so much. Like like some of the stuff I have fleshed out. Like it's in my other stuff. I just haven't typed it up, and like I'm like, oh, I should just sit here and do it. Like, I feel like I probably have between my blue binder is like 3 inches thick of, campaign notes and stuff I've
Mm-hmm.
typed in Word documents over the years. And like, I feel like I probably, if I got all that typed up in here, I feel like it's got to be 100 pages minimum. Minimum.
I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah, like I even want to do a thing where I put in every single player group that I've had into
Mm-hmm.
this as adventuring parties and tell their story, like of how it went. Even if I didn't finish the campaign, like maybe it's one of those things where I reach out to those players and say, hey, how do you envision that ending? I want to write that and flesh this out a little bit, and then just getting input, because I think that would be cool as hell, you know? But yeah, and like there's places in my world too, like I was telling you earlier, where players are like, I want to be from this type of town. And I was like, cool, tell me about this town. And they did. And so we were like, okay, it's a town. And I put the name on it, and then that was it. And I don't think I took notes. And so there's probably places where I'm gonna have to go back to people
Mm-hmm.
and say, hey, remember that time? Do you remember anything about that town? I would like to add that in here. And I want your canon to be the lore. So
Oh no, yep. I've purposely left blank spots for
yeah.
just player agency. So if a player's just like, yeah, I want to be an elf and I want to be from like like an elven kingdom, I'm like, okay, cool.
That can be here.
You can either be from the kingdom of Valinor, which
Yep.
is the first kingdom in Torelden. Elves came over first. Or you could be from the kingdom of Dinasarin, which was founded by elves fleeing Valinor when like a tyrant king took over.
Yeah.
And then I have a spreadsheet that's like Valinor has this many cities, villages, towns, towers, keeps, but I haven't named the only things I'm going to be naming are like the capital cities. That's it.
Yep.
That way, if one of my players is like, yeah, I want to be from Valinor, I want to be from like a coastal city or a coastal village, and
Yep.
it's named Barenthal. Cool. I now have a coastal village named Barenthal that's in the kingdom of Valinor. That's the thing. You get to tell me everything about Barenthal now.
Mm-hmm.
And then I will help you flesh things out. I will just give you some inputs here and there, but you, for the most part, get to write the lore for this location.
I like it. I love that stuff, man. I'm for it. Do you plan like what is your goal with your world? Just use it to play in? Do you ever plan on like actually having it fully written out? What do you think you're gonna do with
Um,
it?
like it's mostly the plan, but
Mm-hmm.
I would love if at some point, like I could fully flesh it out to the point where I could print it out and then turn it into like a campaign setting that people can buy and plan. Like that would be really cool.
I know, wouldn't it? Like I don't care
I
if I'm the same way. I don't care if I make a penny. I
Nope.
literally just want to be like, I wrote a book, guys.
I
And
wrote a book.
tens of people are playing in my world.
It's
That'd be
like,
so cool.
yeah, but yeah, no, mostly it's just mostly the plan. I know I did say, I told my friends, I want to flesh it out to a certain point where I can hand it off to one of them and
Yes.
they can run a campaign in it.
Yes.
And they can put their own spin on the campaign, add to the world and whatnot. Kind of like with Brennan Lee Mulligan when he did Calamity with Exandria Calamity.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Matt Mercer built Exandria, but Brennan gets to do it. Opry also got to do it and add their own spins
Yeah.
on this world. And I was like, I want to be able to do something like that. Yeah, I built it, but now my friends get to run it. I
I
want to
know.
see what they do with this world.
I know.
I just want to see what cool things they do.
That would be so much fun. I think that's the bucket list item for me too.
Oh yeah.
I've told even my home groups like I would love one day to be able to hand you a book with no expectation of you reading it,
Mm-hmm.
but be like, here's a gift. You've played multiple campaigns here. Just here's a gift. Hey, you do get a credit in here as, a co-writer or something because you did
Mm-hmm.
contribute, but here's your thing, here's your name, boom. Keep it, enjoy it. If we play more campaigns there and you want to read it, awesome. Would love to hear your thoughts. But I would love to just be able to be like, here's my world. This is what we're playing in.
Oh, yeah.
Boom. Like, that would be so cool. So cool. So I'm with you. I've been talking about it for years. Like, that's what I want to do. For like 6 years, I've been saying it.
I want to do that. I want to be able to play like multiple campaigns in my world.
Yeah.
Because my friends will come up with like cool characters, and I'm like, if your characters survive, what are they doing in the future? I would love to play like another. I want to pull like Critical Role Season 2. Yeah, we're decades from the first campaign. You might run into your old characters.
See, and I love that.
We'll see what they're up to. That would just be fun.
We've done that in one of my campaigns for sure. So the one I was telling you about with the 8 Pillars of Death, I jumped ahead 80 years, ran another campaign in that same world or same part. The next group was also going against the uprising of 8 pillars that were trying to unite again. They came across statues of the original party at the main city because they saved the city from that. So there were statues of the first party, even though I never finished that campaign. My wife was like, wait, that's my brother's character. And she was like, that's cool. And then she told her brother next time we played a different game with him, he was like, oh, that's awesome. And so we had that. Then we had a wizard, an elven wizard, because elves live for freaking ever. So the fact that it was hundreds of years later in a different part of my world, they got to run into their former character who was a retired adventurer who literally just wanted to sit on their porch and smoke wizard weed. Like, that was it.
Good life.
Yeah, they had already adventured. They had already lost all their friends. That, adventuring life was done and over because all their friends died many years before and their sense of adventure died with them. So it was kind of the thing. And they were a wizard, a professor at a wizard college also in Sandstrom, I believe, is where I had that. I want to say. So, yeah, it was fun. I like doing that. I like giving little nods to past characters, especially when I have players in my groups that played in those campaigns.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's so cool to be like, oh, that was my old character, or that was that person's character. I know who that is, but this character doesn't. I got to roleplay like I don't. And then giving like a little twist on it. Or because I'm now getting to act as that player character, like, they're like, oh yeah, that was totally how that was played. You did that really good, or you made him way more obnoxious, or whatever. I love that stuff. So
yeah, and these are the funs of D&D.
I know, right? So with that, I do think we should wrap up there. It is getting late, but I would love to do this again.
Absolutely, especially because we didn't cover like most of what we're going to talk about.
I know, like I've got ideas right here now that I want to like incorporate into my world. Like I love the dragon powder thing, the Misty Isles thing. I would not take that direct, but I would totally find some inspiration. And I'm probably going to go back and read up on that video game I told you about and do something more based on that to steal now that I've got that idea in my head. But yeah, we'll have to do something again like in a few weeks or something. Once I get these two edited, I will probably be ready to do something again.